Hey, it's Julie, and it's Friday. We're creeping up on Christmas here. It's December 15th when I'm recording this, and I'm back with my Let's Watch Julie Do Something Boring on the Screen with Audacity stream. As I've pointed out before, this is as much for me as for anyone who might come and visit and ask questions. Just a second, let me break out the chat window just in case anybody does show up to ask questions. Gotta make sure it's actually on the screen I can see it on and not on the screen that I've got everything else on. I was going to put sound effects into the scene with Ken and Chiyoko that I mastered up yesterday, but I've been watching some romantic mysteries and I felt a little bit romantic, so I'm gonna do a Hyde and Chiyoko scene instead. If you haven't followed the show, I'm trying very hard to make their romance a sort of in the style of Morticia and Gomez Adams. You know, the my weird balances your weird. And right here, I've got a huge track for Hyde because that was when we did our group recording, and then I've got Chiyoko all on her own. So we've done Hyde at least twice through, and there's probably a lot of interjections. I want to listen to this section. It's going to be kind of loud. Actually, I'm trying to get the volume to even out a little bit when I do that, but you know, it's really difficult. I'm going to take it down a skosh though. This is clearly a section where we were all saying something and laughing. That's why I want to see what we did.
Oh, I love Chuck E. Cheese's.
I've already saved that one over, actually.
At dawn. Not open at dawn. Thank
Sunset.
Oh!
Talking is not precisely what I want at the moment.
Now, one of the things with Hyde is to get the sexy Hyde time voice, you know, he has to get right up into the mic. And so I have to process very carefully so as not to lose any of that husky timbre. And so we're, yeah. Oh, everybody loves Hyde. If you haven't listened to the show, Hyde is the rich guy who's, it is at least implied that he followed them around at first, just scooping up monster bits whenever they killed something, and was obsessed with Chiyoko, and then and Alice suspects him of having ulterior motives other than his ulterior motives with Chiyoko, and never mind those ones; those don't matter. It's the ones that she thinks there's something, he's got something else going on. And he revealed in season 1 that the reason he takes the monster parts is for medical experimentation, because he's got a genetic issue that can't be fixed any other way. So she kind of is letting up on him, but Chiyoko doesn't actually know that yet. That's why she was in the previous scene, the one I put together yesterday, she was so adamant that Ken not tell Alice that she's going out with him. Anyway, so
Chiyoko sounds different. Oh God, I went to New Jersey.
Today's version of Chiyoko will be played by Little Kim. Cho-Cho gonna get the po-po on Yo-Yo.
well, I'm going to take this chunk here. That was terrible. We're not always as funny as we think we are, but there was a part in there I want to save. The problem is also, I mean, in addition to, sure, we're all, there's the bloopers file, while we're all recording together, you know, we get more chance for bloopers, but we also have a tendency to try to outdo each other for wacky bloopers, and that's awkward sometimes because it isn't always as funny as we think it is. But one thing that I'm going to close the Ken scene for now. We can come back and do sound effects another day. The one of the things with I was watching. I mean, it's kind of like I've been watching. I watch a lot of playthroughs, gameplays on YouTube, and in fact, I will probably at some point stream a gameplay here just to, because I want to. I'll warn everybody, like I have an audience anyway. I'm gonna do the game I want to do though, and it's called Dead State. It's a zombie game, and let me see here what this is. That's a cough. We're gonna just cut that out. See, what I'm looking for right now, just before I go off on Dead State, is comments in the off track. This was a stereo track that I already broke up, and when there's comments in the off track, it's more likely to be a blooper.
Right, yeah.
You're so used to saying, do this.
Yes. Okay.
But not with her. Oh God, not with her.
Okay, sometimes it's just direction.
It's sexy. The sex comes later.
Yeah, I'll take that one. We'll embarrass Ray later with it. Yeah, that's the other thing is that you get Beverly, who teaches drama to kids, Ray, who's directed drama, and me, who's the actual director of this show, in a room. We are all kind of tag teaming, directing, even ourselves. And so it can get pretty crazy. It's a lot of fun, though. And anyway, so back to the game that I want to do. Well, at some point, I do want to record a gameplay video of Dead State, but it's a game where it doesn't have voice acting in it, and I want to do a bunch of voice acting for it, just because I'm a voice actor, and that's the kind of thing I find myself doing when I'm playing anyway. I basically would just pick one of the characters and just narrate as that character throughout a day, and then change characters, just off the top of my head, which is surprisingly hard to do, but not impossible. I've been doing role-playing games since before most of the people I know were born. I'm crazy Aunt Julie for a reason. Okay, I'm looking for the line, are we back to the very beginning again? Because that's where the scene begins.
Are we back to the very beginning again?
Okay, so this is the beginning of the final take.
Good.
Now, because of the huskiness and because of the low notes and everything, I absolutely have to keep the second take handy because there's way too much chance of pops and blowing the gain on this. And it's what you have to do for certain kinds of voices. So I'm going to keep this all over here out of my way. I'm going to shorten that up. And I'm pretty sure this was nothing I needed.
You buck you.
Going into this one, if I may. Hyde bucks.
Yep. No, it's all about the hides. He has his own dollar bill.
I'll put that into the bloopers. I mean, sometimes I'll just use little bits of things. Sometimes I'll just, put them back and forth between different things, and they kind of make sense or not. It's just for fun. All right, but just to clear up some of this track so it's not hanging out all the way off the page.
It was probably the Seattle branch of Secret Service.
The ones who actually get caffeine in the morning.
Yes.
The worthwhile caffeine.
Exactly. Well, and then they came by and we did happen to have knives, but as soon as we saw them, we set them down, and they were like...
I have no idea what that is. Is this a story he was telling?
I had the Secret Service come to the stand like a month or so ago. Yeah, the Secret Service. Joe Biden's wife.
I remember that story. There's nothing really in there as funny, but I mean, this was, remember, 5 years ago, so it was timely at the time. All right, so we're going to start with this section here. Now, one of the first things that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to bring the pop music. I keep forgetting that when it's lighter, that's when it's highlighted. It just looks weird because that's not the way it is in all my previous versions. I am going to pop mute him down a little bit more because I've got to bring up so much of his stuff. So what I basically just said is anything that's got farther than 5 away from... anything that's closer than 5 to the edge is going to be brought down. So I'm just bringing down all the peaks. I'm just trying to even out his voice a bit so that I can then take it up like that, just to bring it out. Now, I didn't high pass him particularly high when which takes out the low notes, because specifically it takes out the low notes, and I don't want to lose that Hyde, that Hyde sultriness. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is, that evens out somewhat. Now, a lot of this, some of this here is going to be, like in this area, is probably direction. But we'll start over here. And I'm going to blank out all of the little bits, because that's probably just me cueing. So, let's hear, wait, what is that? That is, or breaths like that, which we don't need either. I only keep breaths if they are pertinent. I mean, if it's expressing something, because in anime, there's a lot of breath noises that get used, whether it's a or a or a, I mean, just because it's the genre cliches. And it's important because, I mean, just like in any genre, you've got cliches that communicate things to the audience, and the audience understands them. If you, for instance, I mean, you don't have to explain them every single time. And for instance, I was actually in discussions at one point for a screenplay I'd written with a small film company, trying to, looking at doing it. And to that end, when we were looking at, I'd written this serial killer story. And I'm going to check this blank spot here. Okay, nothing. And so, while we were talking...
Why don't we begin again?
Okay. While we were talking, we had a conference call and everything. It was so awesome. But the important part was that I do want to take out, like, mouth noises that just don't sound right. But the important part was, we were talking, and they said, okay, look, first off, we like it, it's great, it's got a great, character arc for the female character, blah, 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 but we need to cut down on the locations. You've got to rewrite it to take out a bunch of the locations. And I'm like, okay, when do you need it back? And they were like, no, you really have to do it because we just don't have that budget. And I'm like, I already said okay. And because they were expecting, as a writer, the person to be like, no, my words are perfect. Nothing can be changed. And I'm like, no, I'm fine with that. I am totally fine because, and I chalk it up in some ways to the fact that a lot of what I've written over the years has been role-playing game scenarios. And role-playing game scenarios, tabletop role-playing games, are intended specifically to just be an outline that anybody else can take and run the game using your story and alter it to fit their characters.
Perhaps.
So that, honestly, I've always thought of stories as being, you want to keep the major points, but you alter whatever you need to make it fit your budget or your time period or whatever, and it's never been an issue for me. So when they asked me...
I forgot to eat anything today.
Okay. So when somebody asks for alterations, I have no problem because I'm used to the concept of, my work is going to be altered, and it never bothered me. So by the same context, though, speaking back to the idea of cliches and things, Chuck E. Cheese's, in the same conference. Just a second.
McDonald's it is.
That's definitely a blooper. In that same context, in that same chat we had, the same conference call, they asked, well, can we make the serial killer a woman? And I said, no, you actually can't. And here's why. And I told them because the idea, I mean, it wasn't just a, no, of course not, it can't be a woman. No, there is a reason. And the reason why is because the serial killer genre, the people who are...
He likes the McFlurry. Yeah. He likes the McFlurry. Yeah. Talking is not precisely what I want at the moment.
We're going to be dealing with Pops in a minute, obviously. I'm going to stick the McFlurry comment down here, too. That's amusing. If anybody even remembers what a McFlurry is.
Moment.
So, I want to say, the reason for it is that the audience for serial killer films, the people who are really into the genre, quote, know, unquote, certain things. And one of the things that they know is the fact that the vast majority of serial killers are white males. And it's actually very important to know what your... wait a second.
Okay.
Just a sec. There is some...
Right, of course. Mm-hmm. In a Hyde way. Simple human contact.
I'm going to take this too. That what they know, one of the things they know is that, serial killers are, by and large, white males in their middle ages, not in their middle ages, in middle age, or, and they're
simple,
and that if you go outside that parameter, if you step outside that, whether you're going to make a character a woman or a minority or anything, you actually have to say something about it. You actually have to explain it and justify it. If you make your serial killer a white male in the prospective age range, or even older or younger, within reason, nobody needs to have that explained to them. They know that is the correct thing. But if you make them anything outside that, then your audience is going to go, wait, we know that this is true. Your writer
Lily,
is dumb.
See if I can get a table at La Plage or Orisons. 10 minutes from now.
Very good.
So basically, that puts the audience at odds with your story, not at odds with your character. And therefore, they're going to spend the whole movie going, God damn, their screenwriter didn't do any damn research or something unless you justify it. Unless you point out that you know that it's
now,
wrong.
Kill a man. Okay. Just give that line. Alright.
And like I said, we all sort of start to get a little competitive for goofy lines when we're doing a group session. But the point is that
yeah. Okay.
that
I forgot to eat anything today.
That, for instance, there was a movie called, what was it called? Was it Gothica? I think it was Gothica. It was like the second... It was the second Dark Castle film that came out. I think that's right. not Dark Castle, is that right? The first one was House on Haunted Hill, and then there was Gothica, and in it, spoilers.
We can go anywhere.
See, he's very.
Okay. I forgot to eat anything today. What would you like? We can go anywhere. I forgot to eat anything today.
Now there, I must have cut off something right at the end. As you can hear there's a click in here somewhere. There it is. I can probably fix that.
Thing today.
Yeah, so you don't want things to get cut off ever. You got to be really careful about that, especially when you're blanking stuff out. You got to watch out for the ends of words. Oh, but anyway, the movie Gothica. See, I like this take, but I think I might like this take.
What would you like? We can go anywhere. What would you like? We can go anywhere.
Nah, that first one's good. Now the chances... Oh, I forgot to save it over to another file. How terrible of me. Well, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to save that to edited. Because I haven't saved it. Well, no, I probably have, because I am kind of compulsive about that. I've been chatting away. Anyway, well, I'll keep going. So, no, in Gothica, spoiler alert, the serial killer is African American. And nowhere in... And is also really, really stupid, honestly. I mean, no offense to the character or to serial killers, but the writers were this is why I know, is because I watch all these movies, and I watched Gothica, and I'm like, that's wrong, that's stupid, that's wrong. I mean, you know that people are gonna do it, are gonna be commenting, because you find yourself doing it. And so what the things that were wrong were things like, okay, first off, he's African American, which is, generally speaking, a tiny, tiny fraction, if anything, of the serial killers. This is one of those areas where we white people really, really do rule. We make the most serial killers. And they are mostly dudes. And, I mean, it's not to say that there are no female serial killers, but male serial killers tend to do it for sexual gratification as a generality, and while female ones tend to do it more for money or safety. And that's, and of course there's just plain crazy ones, but even Warnos, Elaine Warnos, she was doing it for safety because she thought people were attacking her. I mean, while, men are just like, I have to kill someone to get off. It's like, well, maybe you don't need to get off. Anyway, but in this case, in Gothica, in the movie, not only was he African American, but he killed... He was a doctor working at the insane asylum, and his boss's daughter, he killed her. It's like, I'm sorry. Everyone who's anywhere, unless you're a completely... unless you're just an idiot, you never shit where you eat. You never shit where you live, I mean, most serial killers would never do something that stupid because it's stupid. It's incredibly stupid. And now, I mean, even if you're driven by a mad passion, you'd make sure that it was totally disconnected from you. I mean, if he's smart enough to be a doctor, he's smart enough to know not to do this shit. And that's what gets me. The other thing was that her body was found in the river, and they didn't, and the coroner mistook the signs of prolonged torture and imprisonment as being she drowned. And I'm like, okay, you have the suckiest coroner in the world as well, because that is not something that's going to get mistaken properly. And so, I mean, just generally speaking, and now they could have fixed it. They could have overcome that. It's not impossible, because if you're going to break a rule, all you have to do is acknowledge the rule. Then the audience is okay with it because they're like, oh, you know about that. Because what they're objecting to is they think you're not paying attention.
This is a hug, not an invitation. Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation. This is a hug.
Yeah. And so what you end up with, you know, is if you point it out, I mean, all they needed to do was have somebody go, well, it can't be him. Serial killers are almost always white. Oh my gosh, that's weird. You know, I mean...
Simple human contact. It is intended to be comforting. I think you need it.
So, you know, I mean, that's all they have to do. All they have to do is acknowledge the rules so the audience can see, okay, you did do your research. We don't have to hate you. And, okay, you know that we know. And we're right. Because the audience wants to be right. You go to a mystery thing, like even a serial killer thing is still a mystery at its fundamental level. And
your hand is trembling.
They want to...
Your hand is trembling.
And they want to be right. You want to solve the mystery. You want to engage the audience. The minute that you break that rule, you disengage them because they're assuming that you didn't write a mystery that's worth solving if you don't understand what the rules are. So, I mean, and that's how I explained it when I was talking about, I mean, I didn't go into the whole Gothico thing and all that, but I mean, that's basically how I explained it. And they're like, wow, you really did your research. I'm like, yeah, I did. You know, is that you can't, I mean, so in other words, what I was saying to them was, if we change the serial killer to a woman or a minority, we have to explain it. That is a big rewrite. It's not just a swapping out of pronouns. It has to be explained and acknowledged. And that takes away from the story I had written. The particular story I had written was not about that. So, and so it became this, okay, we're not going to do that. And I was good with that. I mean, I was actually very pleased we didn't change that. It's not that it would have been bad. It's just that it really would have changed the balance of the story completely. So, I mean, so the upshot of which, how did I get there again? Oh, yeah, I've always been, I mean, I'm easy to change things when it's not important. And, I know, I'll stick to my guns when it is important. And, there was something. Oh, you know, which is why I've always been, you know, pretty easygoing when I write. I like telling stories, but they don't have to be exactly what I said. Okay, here's the scene. Okay, she speaks first. I know, I could go faster with all the editing and stuff. Pardon my snorking, it's winter. I could go faster with the editing if I wasn't talking all the time, but that's the whole point of this. If I'm just doing it, then it's not entertaining. And I could do it step by step if I thought people were actually paying attention. I could talk about what I was doing, but I've done that for the last 5 or 6 episodes, so I figure we're at least at a point where, you know, I can talk about other things. Right now, I've been really excited about getting some writing done because... Oh, that comes after. Because I've just been in the mood, I've been having ideas popping, and I mean really good ideas for things that I've wanted to do. I think I was talking about Much Ado About Nothing. Oh no, I was talking about then my opening to my to The Last Atomic Julies. I've been trying to do an adaptation, and this is also, I think, why I'm good at adaptations, is because I love shoving things around until they fit what I want them to be, or something like that. Let's see.
I do not know. Did I say something wrong?
So, I've been wanting to adapt Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing for ages and ages. But I've never been able to overcome a couple of hurdles with it. It's my very favorite Shakespeare play. I love the romance in it because personally I find it to be one of the best romances in Shakespeare. It's my kind of romance. I like kind of grown-up romance is what it is. I mean, it's well, I mean, I shouldn't call it that, but among Shakespeare's romances, I think of it as a grown-up romance. I've had arguments.
Did I say something wrong?
No,
I had an argument with a friend years ago about, whether Taming of the Shrew is a romance or not, and personally, it's not. But I mean, it's, it is if you do like the Burton and Taylor version and take out all the language and just have them chase each other around making faces, sure, because you can pretty much interpret Shakespeare any way you want.
I did not want to assume.
Okay. I mean, because Taming of the Shrew is just dreadful, but it'd be really interesting to do a reverse gender Taming of the Shrew. I'll have to keep that in mind as well. But for now, but Much Ado About Nothing, I always find to be a more
so soon
silly,
a more mature romance, because you've got characters, Beatrice and Benedict, who they enjoy an antagonistic relationship. They argue whenever they come together, and their friends, who are in a buoyant mood, decide to convince them to hook up. And in doing that, they
Yet.
Oh, oops, that's part of the previous line. My bad. Except for they decide to hook them up by hiding out near, all the dudes get together and hide out near where they know Benedict is sitting, and they start talking about and they all start talking about Beatrice and how she's madly in love with him but won't admit it because she knows, due to their relationship, their okay, darn it, due to their their conflict in their relationship, she can't ever say anything because he would tear her to shreds, and she can't bear that. And he's sitting there hearing this, and they're like, oh yeah, but she's too bad because she's really pretty and she's really smart and all these things. I mean, she's got a lot of good qualities, but he can't see that. All he knows is every time they get together, they argue, and he's like sitting there hearing this, and
I think
really starting to ponder, and he's like, she is really pretty and she is really smart, and
perhaps I do. Perhaps.
So he starts taking this seriously, and the next time she shows up, she's still completely unawares, but he actually, he starts to analyze what she did, and it's kind of a goofy analysis, but at least he's like, oh, there's a double meaning in what she said. Oh, she is into me. She's just hiding it, and he gets...
You choose.
And so then the next step, of course, is for her cousin Hero and a lady's maid to... Oh, nope, did it wrong again. let's see here. Is this...
Huh?
Yeah. To hide out where they know Beatrice is. And they basically do the same thing with her. Say that, you know...
We can talk.
Talking is not...
That Benedict is pretty hot and all this stuff. And then they get into this... You know, and about how she's so proud that she would never, ever take him seriously, and isn't that too bad, because he's such a nice guy, and so I'm going to have to put together a kiss. That's always tricky. Yes, there's kissing in my show. It is so hard to make kiss noises not sound ridiculous. All right. So then, and you know, and then Beatrice starts thinking twice, and they actually realize they like each other, and it works, and there's, I mean, and I'm like, and that's nice, and there's nothing stupid to interrupt their romance. I mean, there's a stupid subplot, but nothing like I mean, there's a stupid subplot, but nothing like them suddenly arguing again or anything, because you know, so many bad, I mean,
You might have something there.
whoops,
Simple human contact. You might have something there. Simple human contact. You might have something there.
one more time.
Simple human contact.
Yeah, I like that first take, but I like the second take on the second line. And
But, of course, food comes first.
so as I'm trying to do too many things at once. And then we've actually got a couple lines from the computer, the onboard computer here, Lily. And that's all of my lines. 10 minutes from now. So what is all this at the end? Let me see what this is from me.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's all deciding what... making people make the right noises is even harder than making people say words the right way. Be surprised how many people can't gasp on mic. You're like, gasp, and they're like, huh. You're like, no, gasp is an intake. Gasp. Huh. No, it's an intake. I mean, sometimes it can be a breath out, but, you know, it's still a... I mean, there's a noise with it, and they have trouble articulating and breathing at the same time or something.
I forgot to eat anything today. What would you like? We can go anywhere.
Okay, so this is actually earlier in the scene, and I'm going to go back and see if I like the earlier take or this one better.
I forgot to eat anything today. What would you like? We can go anywhere.
No, I like this better. It's a different sound because we have...
I forgot.
He's trying to cover up a weakness he's got by pretending he's just hungry. And it's, as I said, Hyde has a physical issue he's dealing with. And see, now once I've edited this all down, it's down to like a 2-minute scene. Most scenes are pretty short. Most scenes in... You know, unless I'm doing something like a long discussion or a huge fight scene, most scenes run a couple minutes long and you move on. One of the things I always tell people about writing stuff is if you've got a scene, you know, take every scene in your... If you feel at all like your show is dragging or anybody mentions that to you, then for each scene you've got, you go take out the first line and see if the scene still makes sense. And if it does, that line's now gone. Take out the last line and see if your scene now still makes sense. If it does, it's gone. The whole point is to keep only what you need in the scene for the scene and let everything else go. I mean, you don't always have to, that's within certain parameters, because in theory, every line in a script, or in a book less, books have more time, but in a script of any kind, screenplay, audio drama, etc., it's a different media, and you've got X amount of time to tell your story, and you're trying to keep it moving. So while, you don't have to have every single line be absolutely plot relevant, but it has to drive either the characters, the plot, or the theme forward. And so, for instance, in this scene, we're getting a lot of subtext going on, even though it seems like a pretty simple scene. Now, they had some time alone in episode 6, and this is the first time he's asked her out on an actual date. This is the first time they've been on an actual date. This is the first time, all this stuff that they're dealing with a lot of. They're really not sure how to do this. Him, because he's never really dated, because he hates the rich people the rich bitches who get tossed at him, and her, because she's been a monster hunter and nobody could understand that. And one of the reasons that he likes her is that she's not in it for the money. She's not after him for his position. And one of the things she likes about him, apart from just, animal magnetism and all that, is the fact that he totally knows what she is and has no problem with it. He's clearly not ever going to try to stop her or whatever. And, she always figured if she ever dated anybody, they'd try to have some kind of say in her monster hunting, and she can't let that happen. So...
Thank you for asking me out. I enjoy, riding in your car.
So that line doesn't say much except they're in the car, but it also says that, he's asked her out, this is a date, and that they're still uncertain with each other. She certainly is. Now, see, there's a lot of breath in here, and like I said, he gets very breathy. I don't want to take and run high-pass filters on the most of what he does, but I'm going to run it a little higher on some of the breathy parts at the end.
Good.
See, it takes out...
Good.
See, now that sounds so much better. And again, she's still just really nervous. She doesn't know what to do. She's never dated. She's, even though it's him, it's still a date, and there's a pressure.
The ride is so smooth, and the seats...
Are we back to the very beginning again?
So, and here they're just kind of trying to figure out where they are. Now, I'm going to have to do a lot of work on his lines as we go along, and it always has been this way with Hyde, because of the breathiness.
Are we... Are we back?
Yeah.
Are we back to the very beginning again?
Okay.
To the very beginning again.
Okay.
Are we back to the very beginning again?
Good. That takes out a lot of my issues there. I'll take that out.
Again.
I think I'm gonna tighten this line up too. I like this intonation, but sometimes I have to tempo him up a bit just to get it snappy, simply because to get the breathiness he can't go too fast.
Are we back to the very beginning again?
I do
Now again, I don't want to take out too much of the huskiness in this disgusted sigh, but I've got to take out some of it. Maybe I'll just run it low again. Yeah. You see, if I take out too much, then it won't sound like him anymore, and I just have to make sure I don't do that.
I do not know.
I'm going to give her a little bit more time here. Again, she's slow to react.
I do not know.
Again.
I do not know.
Yeah, there's some noise in there.
I do not know. Did I say something wrong?
No, I...
Okay.
No, I...
I'm going to volume this up just a skosh. She should sound small here and intimidated, but I still want the volume to be relatively similar. I'm going to take this down, though.
Did I say something wrong?
No, I have had...
There's a noise. See, there's a lot of breathy noises, and I'm just going to take them out. I don't want him to take that long to say this. Let's pull this over since it won't do it for me. I still don't like the whole...
I have had a particularly bad day.
And I'm going to blow this up. Now, here's a place where I'm going to run a high-pass filter. I don't mind doing it on places where it's like the more like consonants. They're less likely to change than vowels are.
I have had a particularly bad...
I'm going to do a little bit here. And see, it's where I see these big jaggedy things is where I'm going to do a little bit of maintenance work. And I think I'm going to do it right here again.
I have had a particularly bad day. And then...
Okay. And I could do a little bit more here. And... bad day. Sure.
Bad day.
So... and then go on with the rest of the sentence.
And then you choose to sit as far away from me as you possibly can. And I felt...
Okay.
And then you choose to sit as far away...
I'm going to take this in just a skosh. I don't want quite that emphasis on you.
And then you choose to sit as far away from me as you possibly can.
So we've got something in here to work with here. Oh, let's see. I can do this one. And this is definitely, there's a pop for sure. When I'm using a high-pass filter on all the pops and things, I could use a pop mute, or I could just cut out part of the wavelength to make it flat, but the high-pass filter tends to pull it out pretty well.
Far away from me as you possibly can. And I felt...
And it doesn't then lose you any of the letter, any of the word itself or the sound.
And I felt...
Now here... I'm going to run it there.
I felt...
And there's a little bit right here.
And I felt...
And I'm going to run, let's see, I'm going to run one here, but I'm going to take it down to 200 again. I just, they're arbitrary numbers that I can remember, frankly, rather than... you know, set that way for a reason, mostly just because I know they work for me.
Why don't we begin again?
And I'm going to volume this up because I certainly don't want this to be missed. Let's see. But I also don't want quite that much spacing.
Why don't we begin again?
I'm going to take a chance on this. I can always undo it.
Why don't we begin again?
No. I am, however, going to... I'm actually going to slow this down. No, wrong way. My bad. When you're doing change pitch or change speed, change speed or change tempo, negative makes it slower, positive makes it faster. I'm just taking it -5%. Now, the difference between the change tempo and the change speed actually lowers it slightly in pitch, just like when you're slowing down a record.
Why don't we begin again?
And I actually am going to tempo it down. This is one of those lines that I want to be very dramatic, so...
Why don't we begin again?
Now I might be willing to do this high-pass filter.
Why don't we begin again? Why don't we begin again?
Yeah, I am going to just take a look at it up close, see if I've got any jaggedy bits that I want to deal with.
Again.
Doesn't sound too bad. This bit I might.
We begin again.
And so, and then...
Come and sit next to me. If you...
Okay. Timing on this, we've got a lot of very generic timing in between each of these lines, and I want them spaced differently. I want more time after that line because that is important, and then I want these two to come closer together.
Come and sit next to me, if you would.
You know what? I am going to listen to these lines in the backup track down here. I just want to see if we've got anything else that it might sound, that I might like better.
As you possibly can, and I felt... Why don't we begin again? Come and sit next to me, if you would. Yeah. As you possibly can, and I felt... Why don't we begin again? Come and sit next to me, if you would.
Actually, I really like that take better. So, all that work I just did on those lines, totally wasted. So I'm going to go back up here for the why don't we begin again.
Why don't
now, bring that up to size.
we begin?
Whoops. How did I do that? Huh. It didn't catch the whole thing. It keeps slipping when I'm on an unfamiliar mouse here. So, take that. Take that. And then, where was I? Over here. You start to recognize your waveforms. It was really funny when I was teaching Kim how to do this. She was like, because there's like a learning curve, but once you get over the hump of just understanding the basics of this, you start to really pick it up. And she was like, I could practically read them now, because you start to see where the sounds are that you're looking at and know what's going on. Just like I said, when I'm dictating a book, I dictate ... for, when you're in a book and there's a section break, they usually put like asterisks or something, because you can see ... when it's spoken. You can see it in the sound in the track. So, okay, now I've got this.
Why don't we begin again? Come and sit next to me. If you would.
Okay, now, I've got a lot of sound in here now that I'm going to go through and take out. And did I not do noise removal on this track? Jeez, whoops. That was silly. Hit the wrong key. Hit paste instead of blank. Blankety blank. And then blanky here. And blanky here. I'm probably still going to slow down the why don't we begin again line, but I'm going to take this closer together and make this a little farther apart. So if I take it down a notch, what I'm getting is...
Why don't we begin again? Come and sit next to me, if you would.
Okay, so I do want to really set this line out. So I'm going to take it down a bit in the speed, and I'm going to take it down a bit in the tempo. I'm doing it part and part because I do want to lower him a little bit for this. I want this to be the, why don't you, just like the sort of the important, sexy line, but I don't want to slow it down so much that you can actually hear that it's been slowed down, and that's dumb.
Why don't we begin again?
Actually, I can hear it. Sometimes even the littlest bit can screw it up. I'm going to try it at 3. And then, whoops, and then do the tempo. Tempo is the one that will slow it down without changing the sound. Speed is the one...
Why don't we begin again?
And...
Again.
I know what I want to do. I make sure I want to volume this up so that it's very clear what's being said. And I think I want to space this out a little bit. How about this?
Why don't we begin again?
Yeah. That sounds better to me. It's weird little things like that that really make a difference to me. But I've been listening to audio dramas and audiobooks for bajillions of years, long before it was popular with... And long back when everybody was like, no, that's for old folks and people who can't see. And I'm like, no. I listen to them in the car. I mean, I went on Greyhound to Gen Con for several years in the late 90s.
Come and sit.
And I literally, and I know what literally means, I literally had a duffel bag full of audiobooks on cassette and DVD, not DVD, cassette and CD, that I checked out of the library, and I listened all the way cross country. I'm not sure if I want to do it there.
To me.
I guess that isn't going to change it much.
Come and sit next to me, if you would.
And, I mean, I literally had, I had, like half a duffel of, I had one duffel full of audiobooks on cassette. Big old boxes. And that would have been like a thumb drive nowadays. And...
Would.
I suppose, I actually think that sounds fine.
If you would.
I think that's fine. So, and then, my clothes were, like, in my carry-on, and I had the duffel bag was full of audiobooks. That's how long I've been doing audiobooks. But, and I also have listened to old-time radio forever. And that was ever since when I was in high school, I worked at a thrift store. And they got in a couple of LPs of old-time radio. They had 3 LPs. One was Lights Out, one was Jack Benny, and one was Fred Allen.
That would be very nice. It is merely that this is the first time that we have been alone since...
Oh, that sounds right, actually. That sounds totally right.
That we have been alone.
I do want to take out whatever this little mouth noise is.
Since... I did not want to assume. You look very tired.
What are...
And so I had heard of Lights Out because of Bill Cosby.
You look very tired.
What are you doing?
Oh, I need space here. Because Bill Cosby did a comedy routine a million years ago about Lights Out and about Chicken Heart. And so when I saw these albums come in, and I had a record player because it was a long time ago, I bought the Lights Out one.
What are you doing? So soon?
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation.
I've got a lot of noise still on his track. Part of it's because I have to volume him up because he doesn't. Doing the breathy voice and the heavy breathy voice doesn't give you a lot of volume. And
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation. Yet.
The noise is supposed to I'm gonna play with this. But so I bought the Lights Out album, and my brother and I turned the lights out and played it, and it was actually really cool. It was surprisingly good. We really didn't expect much. I mean, we didn't expect anything even as good as
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation. Yet.
Yeah, but I'm gonna take the noise down. I want the noise because you have to indicate that she's, actually making a physical contact with a hug, but at the same time, it's...
Silly.
Actually, I think I'm going to take the breath out, though.
Silly. This is a hug.
Maybe I'll just blank it.
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation.
Maybe not. Let's see how it sounds over here.
Soon?
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation. Yet.
Okay.
So soon?
That is very breathy. I want to maybe just take out a tiny bit.
So soon?
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation. Yet.
A hug?
See, now, this is part of where their weirdness goes together here. She's, touchy-feely middle class. He's isolated rich boy who, I mean, it's not that he doesn't know what a hug is.
A hug?
Not that he doesn't know what a hug is, just that it's okay. Not the kind of thing, even though they're dating, it's not the kind of thing he expected. Because she's just really super nice.
Simple human contact. It is intended to be comforting.
And I need to take out all my horrible breaths. I breathe like a gasping, dying armadillo or something. Back to Lights Out, though. It wasn't the Chicken Heart episode on the album, but it was, there was 2 episodes. One was about an acid that eats a hole in the world.
Contact. It is intended to be comforting. I think you need it.
Now there I've got to take out something here. That is just one big pop all on its own. Look at how jaggedy that is. I think it was something like batch X14 or something, the acid that ate the world one. And it was actually surprisingly good. And then on the other side, there was one about a spaceship that's going to the moon or whatever. And as it starts to come back to make its landing back on Earth, nuclear war goes off. And the guys are like, fuck. I mean, except they couldn't say that because it's old time radio. Let's see here. I'm gonna run it. Okay, that's not so bad. It's still kind of bad. I'm going to undo that and run it again with a 300 instead. That's not so bad. And actually, I'm going to take down the volume. I think I'm okay with that.
Perhaps I do.
Okay. I'm going to take those up a little bit and check for pops. But, so once, you know, we'd listened to the Lights Out one and it was cool, I went back and bought the other ones, which are comedy, and comedy doesn't travel as well from time to time, if that makes sense. Because, you know, things that have been...
Perhaps I do.
That have been funny or okay even in the past are now like, But Jack Benny actually was pretty damn good. And Fred Allen was more difficult. Fred Allen was a little bit difficulter because he was more like Jay Leno. It was all totally topical for his era. And that makes it...
Perhaps I...
And that makes it a lot harder. But I know the 40s, and I got the jokes, even if it was not the kind of thing that, you know, the average person would get. But Jack Benny was pretty damn funny.
Perhaps I do.
I think I'm still going to take a little bit more high pass out of this.
Perhaps I do.
Not that much. See, this is where, you know, it's undo is your friend. You want to keep trying different things to get the right sound.
Perhaps I do.
What would happen if I change the speed down?
Perhaps I do.
Yeah, I like that. Just to get it, you know, it's kind of an important line. I mean, this is, you know, as I said, this is their courtship, sort of. I mean, they've already come to terms with their attraction to each other, but now they're trying to, you know, deal with each other in a dating relationship.
Your hand is trembling.
Huh? I forgot to eat anything today. What would you like? We can go anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, he's trying to cover up. He's got issues, physical issues going on. God, it won't let me scroll up this. So one of the best lines that I remember from that album, the Jack Benny album.
I forgot to eat anything today.
That must be something in my track that's making noise.
I forgot to eat anything today. What would you like? We can go anywhere.
You choose. I would pick...
I'm gonna volume this back. Volume's up a skosh. And it does sound a little bit.
What would you like? We can go anywhere. What would...
It's not that bad, except these bits with the breathiness. Oops.
What would you like? We can go anywhere.
You choose. I would pick someplace noisy and silly with too many people.
I'm hearing noises, mouth noises in here.
You choose. I would pick someplace noisy and silly with too many people. You will know a place where we can talk. Place where we can talk.
The fuck is that noise?
You will know a place where we can talk.
There's like a duck in the
Where we
background.
can talk. Where we can talk. Where we can talk.
That's baffling. Oh well. Since it's not something I can take out or fix, I'll see how it sounds in the final. I mean, I could always put a noise over it. That's like the last move of the desperate. But something like that. I mean, I could just retake the line, since it is my line, but I'm gonna...
Talking is not...
Talking is not...
Precise...
See, now there's a giant pop right there. We're gonna take that one definitely down. It's still big.
Precise...
Actually, in this case, I think I'm gonna cut part of it.
Precisely what I want at the moment.
Yeah, we gotta have a rustle and a mwah mwah. This is where I have to put together the kiss. Kisses always sound so silly, but they actually work if you do it right. I gotta go down to the bottom track and see if we got a longer mwah mwah noise from him. So,
Possibly can, and I felt... What are you doing? So soon? Perhaps. Perhaps I do.
I might like that line better than the one up here. It's always like that.
What are you doing? So... A hug? Perhaps I do. Perhaps I do.
No, it sounds kind of
Perhaps I do. Perhaps I do. I forgot to eat anything today. What would you... Talking is not precisely what I want at the moment.
So I'm trying to get back over to where there might be a mwah.
Simple human contact. You might have something there. But of course, food comes first. Lily, see if...
Okay, I'm gonna take, like I said, it is hard to make kiss noises. I mean, and you can't do it like for real. That doesn't sound right. It's gotta be, you gotta have your hand up and be like, unless it's just, then it's cheesy. Okay, back over here. Mute that solo. Bring it up. Where's the moi? Oh, there it is. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do to try and put these together, is put that right at the beginning of the kiss track, and then at the end, right about the time she gasps, have him come up for air. So not quite where I wanted it, but very close. Right about where that gap is. Oh, but I didn't mean I wanted to unsolo. No. Unsolo. Yeah, I could fake that. I'll just put something in there.
Simple human contact. You might have something there. But...
Okay. Now I want to Again, go through, take out his pops. I know it's a lot of work on Hyde's track, and that's because he's such an important character, and we all love him so much.
Simple human
And
simple human contact. You might have something.
we all enjoy.
You might have something there.
We love Hyde. Everyone loves Hyde. Okay, that actually looks fine.
But
I need to.
But of course.
And
But of course, food comes first. Food comes first. Lily, see if food comes first. Lily, see if I can get a table at La Plage or Orisons. 10 minutes from now.
and there's the whole scene. Woohoo! It's done, more or less. Well, I mean, and this one, it's got some. They don't move. This is one thing. This will be an easier one, and I can get rid of this track now that I've been through everything. I'm keeping the label track so I know when Lily shows up. There's going to be noises of movement, and when he asks her to move closer, she's going to shift across the seat. But, I mean, they're going to start out at opposite sides of the soundscape, you know, because she's sitting far away from him. So I'm going to make sure that they're very far apart to begin with. Like,
Riding in your car.
Good.
The ride is so smooth, and the seats.
Are we back to the very beginning again?
I do not know. Did I say something wrong?
No. I have had a particularly bad day. And then you choose to sit as far away from me as you possibly...
now, I should stop here because I'm running out of time, but I have to put in one more thing. And what I'm going to do is I am going to have to dig all the way down, la 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 la, into my backup drive, into might be in here. Hyde's car, Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit. I actually went and purchased these effects just for Hyde's car. Or purchased a license, you know what I mean. Just so that I could, actually, I'm not going to import it, I'm going to open it. So, I have to go all the way over there again. Fatal Girl, Episode Masters, FX. This is where I keep all the FX that are applicable to the individual characters. I've got like all Chiyoko's fight sounds in her directory, and Hyde's coat and his car, you know, Hyde's rolls. Missing aliased files? What is that? 5 missing external audio files. There's no way for Audacity to recover these files. Well, let's see what happens. This is not a box that I usually get. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with that. I don't see anything that seems to be actually missing. I mean, even this one down here that's got very... oh, okay, that's the one that's missing. So, the doors. Why would they not be in... This is exactly why when you go up here into edit, I mean, I'm assuming that that's what this is. You go into preferences, you go into import, export, and no, was that it? No. Quality recording, playback, projects. Copy all audio into project. That's what I thought I always did, but this was a while ago, so that the audio is in the project and is not just trying to find it in the file somewhere. So that is dumb. But we're going to save that. Now let's see. We've got stopping outside, drives by, window, drive start, screech to a stop, drive off. Oh, is this all the internal or external noises? I think this is... Okay, now it's really going to give me some shit. So let's do it this way instead. We're going to close that because it's giving me some shit, and we're going to open instead. Because I've got all of the actual files in here as well. The WAV files. So let's see. Interior. Startup, constant run. Okay. That's what I want. So, and that's the one I was just about to take out of the other one. So I'm going to close that. No. Save it. I can put it in here. And that's much louder than it looked like before. Okay. That's a really loud car. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to high pass filter this one because it is a very low note. But you don't want, I mean, the car isn't really noisy. I mean, he's got, it's a nice car with a smooth ride. So, and he's inside is probably soundproofed somewhat. And then I'm going to just take the sound down about 25. Because what we want...
Thank you for asking me out. I enjoy, riding in your car.
Good.
I'm actually not going to take it down 25. That's a little bit too much. Let's take it down 20. Whoops. Minus 20. Thank you for reminding me, computer. Even when it gets loud here.
I did not want to assume. You look very tired.
What are you doing? So soon?
This is where she moves over.
This is a hug, not an invitation. Yet.
A hug?
Simple human contact. It is intended to be comforting. I think you need it.
I think, however, I'm going to just get rid of the louder portion of the car here. And leave it...
And I felt... Why don't we begin again?
I'm still hearing a little bit of a pop up here in his begin. Why don't... Oh, I missed that.
Begin.
Completely. Look at that draggedy thing.
Why don't we begin again?
Much better.
Come and sit next to me, if you would.
That would...
I'm gonna volume this up and pop it down. Because...
Come and sit next to me, if you would.
Yeah, that sounds more uniform. It sounded just a little bit distant, a little bit quieter, and then louder. And, you know, you got to do everything by ear at some point. This is not something where you can just run science on it and things. You have to actually listen to how things play out with each other. Let's listen to the whole thing now, and then I will call it a day.
Thank you for asking me out. I enjoy, riding in your car.
Good.
The ride is so smooth, and the seats...
Are we back to the very beginning again?
I do not know. Did I say something wrong?
No. I have had a particularly bad day. And then you choose to sit as far away from me as you possibly can. And I felt... Why don't we begin again?
Actually, I want a little bit more space there. Right here.
Possibly can. And I felt... Why don't we begin again? come and sit next to me. If you would.
That would be very nice. It is merely that this is the first time that we have been alone since... I did not want to assume. You look very tired.
What are you doing? So soon?
Silly. This is a hug, not an invitation. Yet.
A hug?
Simple human contact. It is intended to be comforting. I think you need it.
Perhaps I do.
Your hand is trembling.
Huh?
Okay, I need a little bit of time here, too. They need a moment.
Perhaps I do.
Your hand is trembling.
Huh? I forgot to eat anything today. What would you like? We can go anywhere.
You choose. I would pick someplace noisy and silly with too many people. You will know a place where we can talk.
Talking is not precisely what I want at the moment.
Right.
You will know a place where we can talk.
Talking is not precisely what I want at the moment. Simple human contact. You might have something there.
Oh.
But, of course, food comes first. Lily, see if I can get a table at La Plage or Orisons.
Yes, sir. What time, sir?
10 minutes from now.
Very good, sir. The silly thing is, of all things, his onboard computer, Lily, was named Lily as an in-joke to something I wrote many years ago with a computer named Lily. And now, suddenly, among other things, there's a video game of The Evil Within 2. There's a little girl stuck in the middle of the computer whose name is Lily. And I'm like, hey, I had a little girl computer named Lily long before. Not this one's not a little girl, but in the previous thing. I'm still gonna put it together someday, but it's just one of those crazy things. Anyway, well, there's a scene, more or less. I mean, I still have to add in, as I've put it here, the sound effects and Lily's voice. But there's another scene that is primarily done. Yay! One scene a day! Woohoo! There's only 42 of them! Woohoo! Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.